You guys have got to help me out with this one because I'm really trying to understand this mom, but she is making it extremely difficult. And if you don't know who I'm talking about Jenn Soto, Madeline Soto's mom. And if you haven't been following the Madeline Soto case, I suggest you go and watch my first video on this. I will link it down in the description for you. And then come back to this one. I also uploaded Jenn Soto's newly released audio of the interview she had with police on the 18th of April. And let's just say, wow. But if you haven't listened to it and you don't have the time to listen to the whole thing, don't worry, I've got you, because in today's video, I'm going to give you highlights of it and discuss it with you and sort of analyze it and brainstorm with you. And just talk about some things that I found, let's just say, quite insane. There is just no other word for it. So stay tuned until the end. You really don't want to miss it because it just gets crazier and crazier as it keeps going. But before we dive in any deeper, hello and welcome to Crime Rush. I'm Inga and I'm so happy to have you here. Please make sure to subscribe and to like this video to help me out. And also note that this video is intended for mature audiences only, okay? Also, I'm not a professional. I'm no one special. I just like to dig into this, do my research, and report it back to you. You can do the same thing. You can go online and research this and form your own opinions. Now, a few things I want you to note before I show you the clips and talk about it is that Jenn Soto has her attorney with her in this interview. And it took place on the 18th of April, which was after Maddie's body was already discovered on the 1st of March, and after Stephan had already been arrested for the images they found on his phone, the very disturbing images of Maddie and him doing inappropriate things, but before he was charged with Maddie's murder. Now, you will hear in the audio that the detective mentions that Jenn has derivative immunity, but it's only for this interview, and it doesn't mean that she has complete immunity, saying that she can never be charged. I had to look it up because I didn't know what it was, but this is the definition I got online. A type of immunity granted to a person in exchange for their testimony in a criminal case. So basically, anything that Jenn reveals or tells them in this interview cannot be used against her in court unless she blatantly tells a lie. So now that we understand all of that, let's dive into the first clip.
All right, so let's get started.
Before you start, let me just make sure we're clear on the record. Off the record, we had discussed our position on the concerns we have. Ms. Soto was interrogated by law enforcement previously. She was under a tremendous amount of duress and stress, being that her child was missing and then she was was found deceased. There's been media hysteria about this. There's been people asking for her to be prosecuted, tarred, feathered, executed. And so with that said, we have the concern that you brought up about if there's something said inconsistent today, not being used against her for filing a false police report.
Right, so for example, if she said something that was false then, and we have no idea that it was false now before this interview, but she comes in and admits that it was false today, we can't use these statements or that admission that it was false against her, just like we couldn't use anything else against her from this interview. Okay.
Now, I wanted to bring this clip up because something small really stood out to me here. The way her attorney just interjected there and just made sure that she was safe in the situation was a little bit strange to me, because it sounded almost like he was worried that she could slip up, and almost like he was aware of her lying in the past in interviews. Now, this is just my opinion. Everything in this video is my opinion. So please, this is just what I'm taking from it and what I think, and I'm just brainstorming with you guys. But he also mentions there that she was under stress and duress while she did other interviews, and he almost said it in a way, well, I took it as an excuse for her inconsistencies before. But I know he was also just doing his job as an attorney to protect his client. But I think that just told me a little bit of something, that he is aware that there are inconsistencies. I don't know. Let me know what you think. But let's go on to the next clip.
Is there any particular reason Stephan couldn't make it up to the party? Because it's my understanding he didn't exactly work or anything.
He wouldn't have been invited. The party was held at my mom's house, and my mom and him have never had a great relationship. She's never liked him. So he wouldn't have been invited to the party at all. It just would have been my whole family, and then me. If I hadn't worked, I would have been there.
Okay.
Here, Jenn talks about how Stephan was not even invited to Maddie's birthday party. And it was because the birthday party was at her mom's place, and Jenn's mom didn't like Stephan. And I can honestly understand why, but that's besides the point. But you also need to know that this man could not keep a job. And if you have listened to the interview police had with his parents, you will get to understand that this man was a complete mooch, okay? He was a moocher. He was living off of his mom and dad. In fact, he was living in their basement still. And they were just trying to keep him going. He couldn't keep a job, so they were paying everything for him. They were even paying his rent when he was staying over at Jenn's place. I mean, he just had nothing going for him, and he had way too much time on his evil hands.
Before you got home?
Yeah.
And my understanding with her nighttime medication is that's something that you would like to make sure she had bedtime or so?
Something like that, yeah.
So were you present for that occurring, or did that occur after you got home?
That did not occur on my call. I believe I had instructed Maddie when she got home to go ahead and take them herself.
Okay. And is that something that she's allowed to do?
From time to time, yeah.
When you say they, is there...
Okay, so this one was upsetting to me because if you remember in my first video on this case, one of the things I questioned was if they found any strange medication in Maddie's blood when they did the autopsy. We don't know that yet. We only know that she died from strangulation and that she had a bone broken in her neck, okay, from the strangulation, which is very upsetting all on its own. But here Jenn says she was not present that night, the night before Maddie went missing, when Maddie took her medication. And I was just thinking this was a perfect opportunity for Stephan to give her something. And she said she instructed Maddie to take it herself, but I think it's possible that he could have, given her something else, because a little bit later on in this interview, you'll understand more, because she does mention that Stephan had admitted to accidentally giving her a double dose of something.
We had, I had already discussed prior to Stephan coming to visit that he was going to help me take Maddie to school that day.
This one stood out to me because Stephan was aware ahead of time, as you heard in that audio, that he would have to take Maddie to school that day, which was out of the ordinary. He didn't do that a lot, okay? So he was aware, so he could have prepared for this. And this is also part of the reason why I want to upload the interview police did with his parents, because in that interview, his dad says at one stage, and I'm paraphrasing here, so please, his dad says that Saturday evening, that was the night before he left to go to Kissimmee to Maddie and Jenn, something troubled Stephan visibly. He could see that something was really wrong, up until the point that Stephan actually came to him and asked him if he had any anxiety medication. He could see that something was really bothering him, but he didn't say what. And I'm pretty sure that was when it was already going through his mind what he would have to do the next day. I'm not saying he had to do it, but he was thinking this was what he was going to do to this young girl. But what was that? what was it that upset him so much? What did he find out in that moment that made him decide he would have to do this? He would have to seize the opportunity while he had her alone. And I shared some of my theories about this in the other video, but I will say that a theory that I've had from the beginning was that I wondered if Maddie was perhaps pregnant or thought she was pregnant, and perhaps this was the motive for him to do this, to cover it up.
All right. What's the first thing you remember when you wake up after having gone to sleep?
I wake up to Stephan trying to put the leash on the dog.
Okay. Now, is this the first time that you've ever woken up to Stephan trying to put a leash on your dog, or is that something that has occurred before in the past?
I'm going to say this is the first time. It's not normal for any of us to put the leash on the dog on the bed, because if he's on top of any, like bed, couch, anything, he'll pee. He gets really nervous. You have to do it on the floor. So I found it really weird that he did that, but...
All right, so let me ask it a little more broadly. Is this the first time Stephan's ever come into your room while you're sleeping to take the dog out for you in the morning?
I can't recall if he's done it before.
Okay. Did you find it unusual then, or what did you think when this is occurring?
When it happened, I think I was more... I found it off, but I was more worried over the dog. I was like, please don't pee on the bed. I don't want to do laundry.
Okay.
So I was more anxious over that. He put the dog on the leash and told me to lay down and go back to sleep. And I said, okay.
So were you not laying down when he told you to go back?
I was thinking about what she said here and the fact that this was like the first time that Stephan came into her room and tried to put the leash on the dog and take the dog out. She said it was not a common occurrence, or it never happened before. And if you think back to what Jen's roommate said, she said Stephan was in and out of the townhouse that morning. He was just going in and out. And I suspect that he went and put the leash on the dog because that would be a good reason for him to go out and come back in again. We now know why he wanted to go in and out the whole time, because he was trying to dispose of Maddie's body and also the evidence he had. And the part where she said he told her to just go back to sleep, I mean, it actually gives me chills, because if she didn't go back to sleep, then perhaps she would have noticed that her daughter wasn't alive anymore, that her boyfriend, well, her ex-boyfriend, was an absolute monster.
He's sitting in my bedroom on my desk.
Prior to you getting there, he's in your room? Or is that where you guys go to talk?
That he was hanging out there in my room.
Okay.
My room is kind of like the general hangout spot.
Okay.
I walk into my room. He's sitting there on the computer chair. He's talking, acting normal, asking about the morning and how everything went, and that he let me know the errands that he ran that morning or what he was up to.
And what did he say he was up to?
He said he had dropped Maddie off at school and then afterwards went to a vape shop so he can buy vaping things.
Okay.
But that the store wasn't open, so he waited a long time for them to open. They never did. So he drove around, killed time, and then eventually made it back to my house at like 10:20. When later on, when I got home and he was home, we started discussing, or he started telling me that he was going to go back out to run a few more errands in a little bit down 182. And he gave me the name of a few stores that he might stop at. And I'm like, okay. I asked him if he wanted to meet me at my house by 2:30 so that we can go pick up Maddie from school together. And he said, yeah, he'll be back by 2:30. I said, okay.
So was that the plan, to get her together, or was it ever discussed that he would get her alone?
The plan was for us to get her together.
Okay. All right. And so does he leave before you leave?
Actually, before this, while we were having the conversation in my room, he did mention at one point, while he was sitting there, that he had to reboot his phone, or that he had to update his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it? He had to update his phone. So I told him, stop avoiding it, do it. Like, updates take a while, like, do it. And while he was updating his phone, he said, I don't know what I did, but I just factory reset my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's weird. I didn't know that you could do that. He said, yeah, a button popped up and I pressed it and it just reset my entire phone. And I'm like, oh, that sucks.
I actually feel sick to my stomach listening to that. Because remember, they are talking about the day that Maddie went missing. And Stephan saying he had to go and run all of these errands. We now know what he was doing at that time. He was trying to get rid of her body. He was trying to dispose of Maddie's body. That was his errand. And the whole, I accidentally factory reset my phone. I mean, that is the biggest load of nonsense I have ever heard. He had to factory reset his phone because he had to get rid of all the disgusting things he had on there of little ones. I can't say it. YouTube's going to flag me. But this man is just something else.
Do you try and call him or text him or communicate with him?
Yeah, I had been calling him, like, maybe starting 15 minutes before I was supposed to leave just to see where he was.
Did he answer?
No. I leave at 2:30. Around 10 minutes later, I get a phone call from him. And he said, I'm so sorry. I left my phone at home again on accident. I was driving down 192 and my tire exploded or shredded. And I had to pull over into one of the plazas and change my tire. He said he hurt his thumb doing that.
Here Jenn was saying that they had decided together that day that Maddie went missing, that they would go and pick Maddie up from school together. Stephan had said that he had errands to run again and that he would be back in time so he could go with Jenn to fetch Maddie. But then Stephan wasn't home in time and Jenn was trying to phone him, but there was no answer. Eventually, Stephan phones her back and said he accidentally left his phone at home again, because remember, he also accidentally left it when he dropped Maddie at school. So that's a load of nonsense too, because he did it on purpose. He left the phone at home on purpose because he had the foresight to think that he didn't want police to track where he was going exactly, because otherwise he would have led police right to her body. And even if he could have made it back in time to go with Jenn to fetch Maddie, he wouldn't have wanted to do that because he knew very well that Maddie would not be at that school. He knew she was dead because he killed her.
Did she ever have sleepovers? Like have friends come over and sleep over?
Slumber parties, no.
Did she ever go and attend any?
No.
Is there any particular reason? I mean, she's a 12-year-old girl on the cusp of being 13.
Yeah, I've been very uncomfortable with sleepovers just because I know what can happen. Anything can happen in a sleepover.
Well, then you can be the host house like we kind of were. You never hosted any sleepovers for her friends?
For her friends.
Did she ask about it?
Yeah, she did ask.
Was it probably a source of contention or arguments?
It was, I guess what was the source of argument is her and she wanted to really sleep over her best friend's house. And I just kept saying, no, you never know what could happen. I don't know the dad. I don't know the brother. I don't know anybody there. Like, I don't know what can happen to you. So, just afraid of her getting assaulted.
Okay, so when she said that she didn't want Maddie to go and sleep over at someone's place because she was scared she was going to get assaulted, I was screaming. I was like, what? And listen, I don't like sleepovers for my son. I like to know where my son is. I want to see him. I'm too scared. Maybe it's because I do a lot of these cases. I don't know. But if I can see him, I know he's safe, and he's safe in my home, okay? But this mom, the one who sent her 13-year-old daughter to sleep in a bed with a grown man who's not her father, who's actually her ex-boyfriend, not even her boyfriend, she's scared to let her sleep over at a friend's house because she thinks that's going to... Hello, it's happening in your own home, okay? It's happening right under your nose. I told you need to help me. I can't understand this, Mom.
So on Monday the 26th, 7:30 seems like a really early time to depart to go to middle school, even if you're getting Mickey D's. What was the discussion about when Stephan and Madeline were going to leave on the 26th?
There wasn't one.
So you didn't know anything about these plans, or did you? Or
I knew that they were going to go to McDonald's, but not 7 o'clock in the morning. That wasn't.
okay.
I had assumed like 8 o'clock.
And-
But even then, 8 o'clock is kind of early, like 8:30, because you could just go to McDonald's, be done by 9, and then drop her off at school. But the McDonald's is right the block away from the school. So
And Madeline's not driving, so she can eat while she's riding.
yeah. So I
And she
don't.
takes about an hour to get ready in the morning?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
So if they were leaving at 7:30, you'd think she'd have to get up at 6:30 to get ready and go through a routine, right?
Yeah, that's extremely early.
And is that what Stephan told you after these events unfolded? Was that they left early, like 7:30? What did he ever tell you?
It was early. I can't remember the time. I think I dropped her off in front of her school sometime between 8:15 and 8:45.
You say I. What do you mean by that? Did you drop her off that
No,
morning?
I'm speaking, sorry. And,
Okay.
as what Stephan was telling me. Stephan let me know that he dropped her off sometime between 8:15 and 8:45 on the road by the church close to her school.
Mhm.
And I remember asking him, why so early? That's too early. School doesn't start until 9:30. Why did you drop her off that early? Oh, I don't know. We just left the house and made good time. I wasn't paying attention to the clock.
Okay.
This is another part of the interview that really stood out to me because Maddie's school reportedly only started 9:30 or somewhere around there. So if you look at the time frame, he dropped her off over an hour early, and he didn't even drop her off at the school, okay? He dropped her off at a church close to the school. She had to walk to the school. And I don't know if it's because I'm South African, but I'm paranoid. I will say that. I'm very careful with my son and his safety. And I'm just thinking, if my son was dropped off by someone an hour early and it wasn't at the school, I didn't even see him walk into the school, I would be freaking out, wondering if he was safe. The fact that this mom, when she found out that Maddie was dropped off that early and she wasn't even dropped off at the school, the fact that she didn't pick up the phone and just phone a teacher or phone the school itself to ask if her daughter was safe, to me it's wild. I don't know if I'm overreacting to this. Let me know, moms. But that's how I would be. I would have to check up on my son. And I know we all parent differently, and I'm not here to tell anyone how to parent their child. As long as you are not hurting them or neglecting them, go ahead, do your thing, raise your kids the way you feel is right. But when it comes to a child's safety, I don't know. This one blew my mind. Let me know if you agree with that or if I'm off on something there.
The one morning Maddie wouldn't wake up and get ready for school, and she was just out of it. I assumed it was medication related.
Okay.
But I didn't realize, I'm like, did this one medication hit her too hard because we gave it to her late? I called poison control.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to see what would happen. Because at this point, I think I had gotten Stephan to admit that he gave her a second dose of the sleeping meds as well, because he thought I had given it to her in the first place.
Okay.
Now, what do you want to bet me? That he intentionally gave her that second dose. And this is the part that I was talking about earlier, in this video, that he accidentally gave her a second dose of her meds. Now, I'm willing to bet a lot on it that he actually did that intentionally or gave her stronger meds to knock her out, to do the sick things that he was doing to her. This man was an absolute monster, and this mom dropped the ball. There were so many red flags.
Okay. It's my understanding that it's December of 2022 that you and Stephan kind of break up,
Yes.
but he still remains in the townhome.
Yes.
Why is that?
So even though we were broken up, I still considered him one of my best friends. I wanted to give him the opportunity to live there, and he had gotten a job at Disney that was doing well.
Okay.
And I didn't want him to continue to lose that because he had been struggling for a long time to get a job or do anything because his own mental health issues.
Okay.
So I just wanted.
I know you're going to say, how many times are you going to go over the part where she allows her daughter to sleep in the same bed with this man? But, I mean, to me, it's insane. You heard it there. She already broke up with him in December of 2022. Why on earth are you letting your 13-year-old daughter go and sleep in a bed alone, in a room alone, with your ex-boyfriend? How does that compute? I don't understand it. Please help me. And she mentions in there that she knows that he has some mental issues. So this is the type of person you leave alone with your child. And I'm not saying anything about anyone who has mental health issues, but come on, this is a 13-year-old girl and that is a grown man. I don't know.
8:50 and 6:50.
Okay. Prior to Madeline having her own bedroom set up in the living room, where was she sleeping in that townhome?
In my bed with me.
Okay. And this is during a time frame when you were together with Stephan, so is it the three of you every night?
Well, when we had first moved in, it was just me and Maddie. So it was just me and her on the bed. Then I think we eventually got her own bedroom. Stephan moves in eventually, and then, yeah, at that point, it does become the three of us on the bed.
Yet again, something so inappropriate. The three of them in the bed, Jenn, Stephan, and her daughter, Maddie, in a bed together. Listen, at some point, and I hope it would be a lot earlier than 13 years old, you have to let your child sleep alone. And all kids in the beginning, they are scared when they sleep alone. She says at one point that Maddie said there were spiders. She's 13. You tell her, go lie down. There's no spiders. You comfort her, or you lay next to her until she falls asleep. But she needs to sleep in her own room, in her own bed. My son, when he had to start sleeping alone, when he was very young, when he was a toddler, he was telling me that he was hearing little voices in his room. People were talking in his room. But I knew he was saying that because he just didn't want to sleep on his own. He was scared. But I went and I comforted him. And in the beginning, I used to lay down next to him until he fell asleep. But he had to learn to sleep in his own bed. You don't let your child come and sleep in the bed with you at that age when you have a man in there.
So now you've broken up with Stephan in December of 2022, right? Mm-hmm. He's still paying rent, and he's there full-time in bedroom number 4. Is that where he goes after you break up?
No, he stayed in my room for a few months. We had broken up, but we weren't sure how to discuss it with Maddie because it was the middle of the school year, and I didn't want to affect her in any way. Mm-hmm. So we just played it off, acted like everything was normal and fine for the first 6 months. And then eventually she caught on. And then once she did, we admitted to her that we were broken up. And then, at that point is when he moved up to bedroom 4.
Okay. And once he moved up to bedroom 4, were there instances where Madeline would sleep alone upstairs with him?
I'm going to say
I want you to think carefully before you answer, because obviously we've gone through your phone and we've seen all the conversations that you've had with Stephan. So it's clear that that's occurring. So I'm giving you the chance to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how many times it's happened.
Okay. Why are you allowing that to occur?
I saw Stephan as someone that I completely trusted with my life, my child's life. I thought he had cared for her as a father would. He had been in her life for more than half of it, playing the father role. I thought he cared for her the way I did.
Did you hear how she answered that? She said, I think I'm gonna say, almost like she had decided before that this was gonna be the answer to this type of question. I mean, how's about telling the truth here? Because your daughter has been murdered and you know that at this point of the interview. And you know the types of things that they found on your ex-boyfriend's phone. And she already knows that the detectives and the whole world knows that Madeline slept in Stephan's bed the night before she went missing. And I just love how the detective jumps in there almost as if he can see that she's going to, try and sway from the truth. And he says, remember to tell the truth here. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. Tell the truth because we've seen the messages between you and Stephan and where you discuss Madeline sleeping in his room. And I would just love to see those messages. Honestly, I would. And then he asks the $1 million question. Why would you even allow that? Why would she allow for Madeline to sleep in Stephan's bed? And she goes on to say that she thought that Stephan loved Maddie, that he cared for her the way, and he loved her the way that she loved her. Okay, first off, I'm questioning the love that she had for her. I'm sorry to say that. That's my opinion. Let's just say our mothering is just worlds apart. But secondly, it's very rare for a non-biological person to love your child with the same intensity and same love that you do. It's very rare. And I know there are some great stepmoms and stepdads out there. I'm not saying anything about that. But single moms have to be extremely careful. I really feel for them because they can be such a target for sick men like this. But you have to be careful and you have to be vigilant when it comes to your child and make sure that you notice every red flag and that you definitely do not drop the ball in this area. Because look what happened. Her child had to pay with her life for it.
Maddie had the opportunity to go visit her biological father in the fall out in Texas. Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. Do you remember texting the biological father, hope nobody touches Maddie or tries shit or films her under the bathroom? You remember sending that text?
No.
Orange County Sheriff's Office back in February?
No.
Because that seems like a very oddly specific thing to text the father. So you didn't know anything about what was going on filming underneath bathroom doors?
No idea. I don't know why I would have texted them.
Okay. June 16th of last year, about 9:30 p.m.
Oh, actually, I can't actually think back to that.
Okay. What?
I think around the time that Maddie was going to fly out to Houston, there had been an airline person that had gone into the bathroom and placed their camera on the toilet to film. And I remember thinking, I don't want Maddie, I'm afraid of Maddie being alone on a plane because what if an attendant does that to her and says, hold on, let me fix something in the bathroom. And in reality, they're setting up a camera because this did happen to a girl.
Okay.
So I want to say it may have been concerns over that.
Okay.
Once again, this is the same thing as with the sleepovers. She doesn't want her to sleep over at a friend's house. She's scared she's going to get SA'd there. She doesn't want her to fly to her dad in Houston. She's scared she's going to get SA'd or someone's going to look at her from under the door or something. But meanwhile, all of this and worse is happening in her home. But wait until you hear this next clip.
Now, June 16th of last year at 9:30 p.m. and 27 seconds, you texted Stephan this. Maddie's no longer sleeping with me. I can't risk it. What does that mean?
I have no idea.
How often was Maddie sleeping with you?
Often, all the time.
Well, you keep on saying often versus all the time. Was it 100% of the time or not 100% of the time?
If she wasn't with my mom and she was with me, then yeah, she was sleeping with me.
And if she's at mom, she's 100% of the time sleeping with mom? Your mom?
With my mom, or she does have her own room, I guess. Like there's another spare room she could use, but for the most part, she prefers to sleep with my mom.
Okay.
Now, I would love to know, what does she mean? She can't risk it. She says in that message, I can't risk it. She's talking about Maddie sleeping next to her. Now, I've been trying to think of things. I've been trying to think, maybe she can't risk not getting a good night's sleep because she needs to work in the morning. And then my thoughts went a bit darker. It went to, maybe she had feelings of wanting to SA Maddie. I mean, it's an extremely sickening and dark thought, I know, but I won't lie, it went through my mind. And I would love to know your opinion on this because I can't figure it out. What does she mean by she can't risk it? I was also hoping the detective was going to push her a bit more on that question because she didn't actually answer it in the end. It sounded like she was glad to sort of move on to the next topic. But she didn't answer why it was a risk for her to sleep next to her own daughter. It really doesn't make any sense.
Now, my understanding is that you had some sort of period tracker that you kept track of Madeline's period with?
I had a calendar app that I would write what days she would get her period, yeah.
And obviously, Madeline doesn't have a job, so she's not going out and buying the products that she would need if she had her period, right? You would have to do that for her?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
So, do you remember her using any of those products at all in February? Because I assume you take the trash out, or does she take the trash out, or how does all this work?
I take the trash out. In February, no, I didn't notice her using any of her feminine hygiene products.
Did you have any conversations with her about that?
No, but I didn't notice until after everything.
Because it would have been due like at the beginning of February, and this all happens at the end of February, so she's almost due again in March. So you never had any conversations with her about not having her period at the beginning of February?
No, she's had other periods that have been missed or like super late, so I just assumed this was going to be one of those situations again.
Okay.
But no, I didn't.
Did you ever discuss her periods or lack of periods with Stephan?
I don't think so.
Now, this was a big, big one for me. This stood out because this detective is asking Jenn if she tracked Maddie's period. And he also mentioned that, well, they sort of came to the conclusion that she had missed her period in February. Now, why would he ask this? If there was no suspicion, or if they perhaps even knew that Maddie was pregnant. And hey, this is all my opinion, all just suspicions, I'm guessing. But I find it very interesting and strange that he is asking her specifically about Maddie's period. And it makes me wonder, like I said before, if perhaps Maddie thought or knew that she was pregnant and she let Stephan know on that Saturday night before he came through, which is probably why he was so upset when his dad saw him, and that he felt that he needed to cover this up. If you need a motive, that would be a great one. But I don't know. We'll have to see what comes out. I don't know if perhaps the autopsy revealed that and they still need to share that with us. It'll probably only come out in trial. But I think that is my best guess. We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you think.
During your previous interviews, and you did it once today, you kind of interchanged I, we, or Stephan dropping Madeline off at school. Did you see Madeline at all on February 26th, 2024, that Monday?
No.
Do you know anything about how she died?
No.
Did Stephan tell you anything about how she died?
No.
Did Stephan tell you about his plans to go back down to Northport in your car that Wednesday morning?
Mm-hmm.
So finally, she admits it, that on the morning of the day that Maddie went missing, that she did not see her daughter, okay? And before, in interviews, she had said she saw her Then she said she heard her. I mean, she said a bunch of things. I can't even remember everything. But then when the detective asks her in this interview, did you see her? He asks her point blank, without any hesitation. She says no. She is a walking, talking contradiction. And then the detectives bring out the big questions. Did you know how Maddie died? Were you part of it? I'm paraphrasing. But they are the serious, hard questions to ask. And I'm just going to give you my opinion here now on it. And I don't think it's going to be a popular one because I think the public is just so enraged with this mom. And I understand why. But I don't think that Jenn actually had anything to do with the end of Maddie's life in the sense of physically being a part of it. The essay part, that's a different story. At the very least, she is guilty of neglect of this child. In my opinion, I have to add that. I have not seen any evidence pointing directly to her being involved with helping Stephan end Maddie's life. And if she was aware of the essay, which I think there's a big possibility for that, I'm not letting her off the hook with that, but if she was not involved there, how? How did she not pick up all the red flags? Like I said before, this mom dropped the ball in many, many ways. And we all make mistakes as parents. But there are a few mistakes that you just do not make as a parent. And this is one of them. And she's made a few, actually. And she's had some very questionable answers and questionable behavior. And it could just be that she's weird. I know we all grieve differently, and I know she's on medication. I honestly couldn't care less if she's on medication, to be honest with you. This is her child. This is the most important thing in her life. But wait until you hear this very last clip, because this was the one that made me just want to rip my hair out of my head.
But she sleeps like a monkey. She rolls. She'll start on one end of the bed and end up on top of me by the end of the night. And she's a gymnast, I guess. But
she said that Maddie was like a gymnast in the bed. She was busy in the bed while she was sleeping. You know, my sons are the same. She said that Maddie would go to sleep on one end of the bed and wake up on top of her at the end of the night. So why on earth, when you know this about your daughter, would you allow her to sleep in a grown man's bed? Even if she didn't do that. But now especially, because if she ends up on top of you sometimes, she's going to end up on top of him. I mean, can you imagine? And hey, listen, men, help me out here. But you guys have some stuff going on there when you're sleeping, okay? Like, sorry, just hear me out here, but rolling around on that thing, and it can make it react, you know? And maybe this is a bit personal information, but my husband sometimes, he'll be snoring and he'll get touchy-feely with me, you know? So he's not sleeping next to anyone except me. But my point is that that's even more of a risk if you know that your child sleeps that way. Why on earth? I need an answer to that question, because I don't think we could ever answer that question. It doesn't make any sense for a mom to do that. That's all the clips I wanted to show you and talk about, but there is one other thing I'd like to mention, and that's the fact that when I listened to how Jenn was explaining how Stephan phoned her and said he ran these errands, and he mentioned the shops that he went to, and that he had this flat tire, and that he factory reset his phone and he forgot his phone at home, it all seemed so strategic. It was like he was practicing because he knew he would have to tell that to police. And once again, I'm reminded of the interview police had with his parents, where the dad said that when he phoned Stephan to find out what happened, Stephan said all of that time, he said all of that stuff. He said, oh, we made good time. And I swear if I hear him say we made good time one more time, I'm going to die.
We made such good time. I mean, we were so impressed. We made such good time getting out the door. I mean, we were probably out by 7:30, 7:45.
But we made good time. And I went to this shop and this shop. I dropped her there, and he told it. And the dad said his dad said that when he was telling him this, and he knows his son, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said it was almost like he was practicing his story on him. And that came from Stephan Sterns' dad's mouth. Listen, one thing is for sure. Stephan Sterns, he is a monster, allegedly, because we have to wait for this to play out in trial. But I think we will see a lot come out in this trial, and I am waiting for it. I want to see what he has to say for himself after all of this. And my heart breaks for Maddie. This was a 13-year-old girl, and she lost her life in the worst way. By the hands of someone who was supposed to protect it, by someone who she called dad. Okay? And the evil shocks me. I've seen many cases, I've researched many cases, but it still shocks me. But that's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you will like it to help me out. And also, leave your thoughts and opinions. Let me know what you think. Do you think there's a good chance that his motive for doing this horrible thing was to cover up a pregnancy? Or was it because maybe Maddie threatened him that she was going to tell? Let me know what you think. But thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.